Welcome back to the Beyond Clean Expert Series, a look inside our Borescope Expert Series, where we're bringing some Borescope experts to you to help answer questions around the effective use of Borescope programs in your facility. I have with me Andy Sundet and Jenni Gibbs here in studio. Guys, welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about multidisciplinary involvement in Borescope processes, trying to bring in not just the sterile processing department when we're talking about this device, but the collaboration across the spectrum of people who are involved. So if you would, lay it out for me. Who all is it that needs to be involved in this discussion around Borescopes beyond just the sterile processing department?
Yeah, so we see this as a very powerful tool, obviously, across all these disciplines and groups. But SPD, endo, biomed, infection control are the ones that we really see often. My initial quick take is that they're going to each group's going to find their own interest and power within the Borescope visuals, the pictures and videos. My first pass and ask is to say, hey, get those groups in front of this early and often. But Jenni, do you want to
Yeah,
start with a
the
couple of them?
no-brainers, of course, your reprocessing team, your CSD, and again, that's technicians to supervisors to upper level in the division, your directors, even your, vice presidents, that report up to that change. So everybody kind of in that arm. For the reprocessing team, we have two main quick objectives with it. First is the unit, your medical device, defect free. Is it cleanable? Is it safe to be cleaned? That's the first thing. So are there any defects or issues with it? The second one that we use it as in SPD or in endo reprocessing is really that cleaning verification arm. So those are kind of the two main arms that we use that data and tools. Surgical and GI leadership, that next bucket, they are your immediate partners in that because they're using the devices we're cleaning. So those are really imperative to have at the table, thinking about patient outcomes, safe medical devices for them, their productivity, the availability of their resources. So that impacts not only the patient safety arm, which is huge for them. I kind of see two flows. One is patient safety with that device and how it is. Is it clean? Is it ready? Is it safe to use? But then the other arm is their productivity, which can lead to finances and impacts and physician and scheduling. And so there's a whole arm there that these pictures and what you can find in that, and is that device safe? It's just powerful. So those are the two I'm most close to. So, but then Andy will kick off the rest.
Yeah, I think here's a couple that might not be top of mind, but I think you'll be very interested to engage with these groups. So biomed, this group's got a major presence from what our experience has been and influence when it comes to device condition, repair analysis, repair costs, things like that go down to like root cause analysis. So we're finding more that from this group that has a major influence and certainly are interested in seeing what's going on inside those devices. I'll bring up infection control, auditing process and finding improvement opportunities with the Borescope findings is something that really sticks out. A lot of this recent public releases that we're seeing in the news with contaminated devices, this is stuff that probably keeps them up at night, and the visual of a Borescope hopefully can get them back to sleep a little bit easier. Risk management, regulatory, probably in the same vein as that as well. Vendors, here's one, loop the vendors in. We're a vendor on the Borescope front. We want to make sure that your Borescope's working for you, that it's something that fits into your process, but also looping in the device manufacturers. When you have this visual, those other device manufacturers also become experts on and a partner in the solution finding for what to do next based off of what you're going to find with the Borescope inside those lumens. So summarizing those, I can't think of a better reason why you wouldn't want each one of these partners wouldn't want a front seat. Get them in front early and often with these visuals and make sure everyone's got a seat at the table.
Yeah, that's a great punch list to walk through. Andy, I want to take one step back. You started by answering saying you want all of these folks that you mentioned at the table early and often. Could you clarify real quick for me what table that is when you say early and often? Like, when are these people getting together around Borescopes and what are they talking about?
Yeah, I can say Jenni's got probably a great experience level, but you know, there's got to be, I'm sure there's interdisciplinary meetings that are happening at the hospital level. These visuals can be a great part of a presentation. So when I say visuals, I mean pictures and videos with the borescopes. But
I
Jenny,
think it's
maybe give a
Yeah,
better
no,
example
it's
than
I
I do.
think when we were lifting, whether multiple different areas. So whether you're looking at your AMI guidelines and standards and what standards you're going to look at that, if it's a problem resolution, if you're doing a root cause analysis, you had an event, if you're trying to get borescopes into your organization, if you're trying to get the answer to costs of repairs, this is the group that all has a piece. You know, you've got the people doing the reprocessing, the people using the borescope, the end users of it. You've got, whether it's biomed, if they do all of your vendor and send out repair stuff, looping in the vendor or the OEM, you know, on that device. What are you seeing? Help us get to this root cause of this issue. Why should we do this? Why shouldn't we? You know, is it in our IFU? Helping, I think everybody wants to be successful in the industry. We're all in this industry because we care about patients having safe medical devices and safe procedures. And a picture and a tool, and knowing that the other 50% of that device is safe for them and the risk to them. But regulatory, this all rolls up to, so whether it's your infection control meeting that most of these people are at, if it's a special session that you're having, it all rolls up together.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer. It sounds like all of these groups have a vested interest in the Borescope program. So as you're maybe even kicking it off and thinking about buying one, it's a great group to pull together to start talking about it. And then to your point, everybody having a voice in how this program is implemented. Andy, I'm curious, in your experience, how do you go about encouraging that kind of interdepartmental collaboration in a very siloed healthcare environment around Borescopes?
Yeah. Well, no one's an expert in everything, but these interdisciplinary groups, they are experts within their field. So they're going to come with different thoughts, feedback, revolving around what these borescope pictures or videos are showing. And I think it's important that everyone can listen and feel comfortable coming with their thoughts and ideas surrounding what that visual is representing. So that's one way to encourage it. Make it collaborative, and I think that's what those groups are all about. So that's creating space where the meeting has time and open communication lines for people to do that. And yeah, again, I think that people, like Jenny said, the focus is patient safety, and yeah, what a great tool to kind of huddle around with that visual.
For sure. Jenny, I'm curious, from your experience, do you have any examples of just specific communication strategies or tools that you've used to help make that collaborative interdepartmental communication happen?
Absolutely. One immediate one, a couple of different thoughts I have, different veins and examples, but with our endoscope reprocessing in our GI team, like, we use those visual tools. If, say, we had one example where they tried to deploy a stent during an ERCP procedure, and they couldn't, it wasn't on the x-ray, they couldn't find it, and again, the normal process and how that works. And that's a common thing that does, it's not uncommon that happens. But they told us, we can't find this stent, and it didn't deploy appropriately. And we were able to look inside the scope and find the stent inside the scope for them. So again, it helped knowing immediately that it wasn't in the patient, it didn't deploy somewhere else, it was very collaborative in that. So just as simple as that, if there's a retained object in the scope, if there's something in the scope, maybe like biological contamination, maybe it was an emergent procedure and the patient wasn't, fully cleaned out like normal for a GI procedure, and there's stuff in there that maybe they're looking for, or they want to know what is going on. So we use that communication tool a lot, just as we would with the condition of the outside of the scope, if there's a defect or they left the balloon on the tip or something. So we just use it collaboratively all. And that is one of the requirements, to have some handoff communication around that endoscope and device reprocessing in the new standard, and the visual inspection and those pictures of what's inside and being able to look at the other part of that device is just key. With our physicians, that's another big arm that we use it for. And again, that kind of goes through our GI team sometimes, or our surgical team, is if there's a defect we find, and again, it's pushing on. We had an instance where we did an inspection. We had used an endoscope, an EUS scope and they had another patient on the schedule, and that was our only scope, and there was a defect in the channel, and the physician, we showed him the pictures of what was in the channel, that this flap had been cut, and there was a flap of lining hanging over, and he made the determination, like, he appreciated knowing that, because he's like, I am going to do a biopsy, I can't miss that doing that. And so we ended up doing an alternate process, rescheduling the patient, all in the name of patient safety. And so that was a very collaborative, positive example. Biomed and vendors, we use this all the time for repair verification, sending the picture with, inspecting it when it comes back, tracking different types of trends. It's a powerful, powerful tool. The kicker in all of this, when you look at these interdisciplinary teams, is you can feign ignorance until you see what's going on, and then once you know, and then you can't be in the dark anymore. So it's a powerful tool to really help us all elevate what's going on in those scopes to have safe medical devices.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess just to summarize, I love hearing Jenny's kind of real life stories, because I think these are very common from what we hear from other groups we work with. So summary being, all those people at the table, the visual is a great piece to huddle around, and making sure that everyone has a spot where they can kind of maybe come with their ideas on what's maybe happening or how to resolve it. Everyone's there for the same reason, but the visual, like Jenny said, is that's something you can't duck or hide around, and a great tool to come with a solution together on.
Yeah, I appreciate that answer. The cheesy phrase that keeps popping up in the back of my mind is, picture's worth 1,000 words. And it really is in this case, not only in making the case that you need with those partners, but also bringing up conversations you otherwise wouldn't have known to have. I imagine in the early days of scope repair, Jenny, you may not have been a scope repair facility's
I
favorite
was
customer.
not.
It's like, oh, here comes another email from Jenny Gibbs. But exactly, but it's really facilitating a lot of important questions that need to be answered. So I appreciate those insights. That's going to do it for today's episode. Next time we get together, guys, we're going to talk about how to use this as a quality assurance tool, particularly as it relates to that regulatory and compliance piece that you brought up. In the meantime, for our listeners out there, if you have any other questions around this topic or other topics related to borescope inspection, I would encourage you to reach out directly to Andy and Jenny. You can find their contact information in the video description below. And until we talk to you again next time, keep fighting dirty.